like to end the week right here on the BWI Daily Edition, so we bring in our heavy hitters on Friday, and every Friday we have Ryan Snyder, our recruiting insider, and our expert prognosticator. We'll get to a new segment here on the BWI Daily Edition in a little bit, but first, how's it going, Ryan? Happy Friday.
Yeah, man, excited. About to hit the road, watch some games here tonight. Week 2. Week 1 was a bit of a bust. Central PA, Mother Nature did not cooperate in the area. A couple games got delayed and whatnot. And looks like pretty good weather tonight, though. We had a crappy week, so excited to go out and watch a game we're going to talk about here in a little bit.
Yeah, mid-70s, beautiful weather right after the hurricane rolls through. We have good weather Thursday, Friday, so hopefully that holds for tonight. It's supposed to be 75 and beautiful across the state for the forecast today. So if you're heading out to any of these games, now you've got a weather forecast too. We're bringing to everything here on the BWI Daily Edition. Also, injuries kind of marring week 1. We'll get to that again in just a little bit. But start off with some recruiting tidbits. Anything new or any updates that you want to share with us to start the show?
Well, it's September 1. We'll talk about just the ramifications for that in a little bit. The biggest thing, Penn State extended a 2023 offer to tight end Andrew Repellier, I believe it is. He's a 6'4", 215 tight end out of Milton Academy in Massachusetts. And he actually came up for a visit on September 1, which is kind of rare to have a midweek visit like that. I guess he doesn't start school, I believe, until this upcoming week. So he came down in the town, checked everything out. I haven't caught up with Andrew yet. I'm planning to do that here soon, but caught up with a couple contacts about it, and they really like everything on the field and off the field, and that's why they decided to extend an offer now. Visit went really well. So Boston College, Michigan State, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Virginia have all offered so far. He's a solid 3-star player and someone I'm looking to learn more about. I haven't been able to watch much film of him yet, but I know Penn State really enjoyed getting to know him the other day.
So that's one little tidbit. There's also more if you want it for Friday, because every Friday Ryan does his recruiting mailbag. So bwi.rivals.com. And if you're not a member, bwi.rivals.com/subscribe so you can check out the Friday mailbag. Always got great information. In fact, when I'm prepping for the weekend, or if I'm looking if I need to do a T. Frank's film room, I read his mailbag every Friday to kind of mentally prep for, okay, what do I need to get prepared for? So it's great information. Another one of your articles this week, 5 things we learned in August. We'll go through a couple of them as we transition into September. The first thing, Drew Allar. Tell us about what we've seen from Drew Allar and what we need to know from August with him.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, August was slow. I think anybody who follows recruiting knows, that this compared to June and July especially was one of the slower months we've had, and that's what happens when you have 24 commits in your 2022 class, and especially with 2023 kids who haven't been able to take any visits until 2 months ago. So there's a couple things though that really stood out in August to me, and Drew Allar getting his 4th star was probably what garnered the most attention, especially considering he was a 247, had him pretty high up there for a while, and I know a lot of fans were hoping Rivals could move him up, and they did. Our national team really just didn't get out to see him much in the spring for one reason or another. Just they didn't get to watch him when some other people did, and they got that opportunity at Elite 11, and he was great. He finished in the top half, not just by the Elite 11 staff, but a lot of outlets had him anywhere between 6, 7, 8, 9, somewhere in that ballpark. So Rivals moved him up to number 196 overall, so into the Rivals 250. And you can be a 4-star outside the Rivals 252. So not only did he get a 3-star but a 4-star, but he joined the Rivals 250, and I think that's right. I could see him moving up even a little bit more. He's had a solid start to the season, and he's going to have some good games coming up here in the months ahead that will give him that opportunity to move up. But just a couple other things in August that stood out to me. He wasn't the only one to move up in the rankings. Caden Saunders took a huge jump. I believe he was 80 spots to number 78 overall. That made him a top 10 tight end. And Mekhi Flowers went out to the opening and really performed well at safety, and he moved up about 40 spots or so. We still have him listed as an athlete, but safety seems to be the spot that I think that's where Penn State wants him to play, and Mekhi seems a little more open to that than he did originally.
Okay, that was going to be my next question, because he seemed, especially on his junior film, firmly entrenched of he is a receiver, but it definitely, by the sound of it, he is kind of more open to that then.
Yeah, look. I still don't think there's like a concrete decision on that. But just with the way Penn State's brought in some receivers and the help they need, I think more so at safety, it certainly makes more sense. But listen, Makai's a heck of an athlete too.
Yeah.
We got to watch some of his film from Manheim Township the other week when he played Anthony Ivy, and he did have 3 drops too, which is noteworthy, I believe, as far as the wide receiver game goes. But he also had some great catches too. I believe he had six receptions overall for Central Dauphin East. So I don't think that's a done deal or anything like that, but I do think safety is where he'll most likely end up.
Yeah, and as far as his abilities on film, from what we've seen, I'm not surprised. He's a super athlete, but pretty raw when it comes to the football side. So him progressing at either position this year is a good sign, and it sounds like the safety position is coming into form. A couple other things that we learned in August. One thing was confirming some things, and the running backs coming into Penn State, pretty damn good.
Awesome. Really damn good. Like, we only had 3 games, and one of those games was against Bishop Sycamore. I don't know if you want to spend we could spend an hour on the Bishop Sycamore saga, which is very interesting. But Katron Allen, to me, obviously, what was it? I think it was 160 yards and 2 touchdowns in little over a quarter against Bishop Sycamore. Whatever, put that to the side. It was the 227 yards and 2 touchdowns against American Heritage, which I believe we talked about on the last daily. That really popped out and grabbed the attention of not just myself, scouts, fans, everybody. American Heritage is one of the most stacked defenses that we see in the entire country, with at least 6 guys that are going to play Division I, 3 of which are Rivals 250 players. So to put up those kind of stats against a stacked team, from Florida, nonetheless, is great to see. And then, of course, Nick Singleton, 281 yards, 5 touchdowns against a York squad that played in the District 3 championship last year. Just a great start. We'll actually get into a game that he's about to play this upcoming weekend here in a little bit that I think is something for fans to keep an eye on. Just the last thing then for August was really just kind of some of the injuries that we've learned over the last couple of days, or really the last couple of weeks. Of course, Dennis Sutton, dislocating his elbow. That came out around August 17th, I believe. He dislocated the day before against Good Counsel. I actually caught up with Denai. Yeah, it is. But the good thing is I caught up with Denai this past week, and he will be back here, I believe, in probably about 2 weeks, definitely 3 weeks. And in 3 weeks from now, he has a big matchup against Abdul Carter and LaSalle. Of course, I went to go see Abdul Carter and LaSalle play Bishop McDevitt last week, only to learn about 45 minutes before the game that he wasn't going to dress. The exact injury, I'm not exactly sure. Lower body minor is kind of where I was left to understand, and he should be back soon. I kind of got the impression he may have just kind of had a pulled hamstring, but I really don't know that for sure. It's just kind of what some people hinted. And then Jerry Cross is kind of one that's gone under the radar a little bit. He has a high ankle sprain and probably won't play until the end of. Yeah, it's a tricky injury too.
Yes, it is.
Probably won't play most likely until the end of September. So that was noteworthy and one that I thought fans should know about. But the most important thing is all 3 of those are injuries that shouldn't knock them out for a long period of time. Shouldn't really hamper their long-term progression. So that's good enough.
Yeah, and 2 guys, especially right off the bat, that I know we were both eager to see more film on with. Carter, how does he progress as a linebacker from kind of the maturity standpoint? And then Dennis Sutton, how does he progress at all? We don't really know. And it's going to be really interesting watching Denai play with that elbow injury because, those things, any injury can linger, but the way he uses his hands in that position in general puts a lot of stress on that joint. So if he doesn't play up to what you're expecting, even if he's very good, but again, the tape, we're looking for 5-star stuff. He's injured. That's gonna be playing a factor going forward. So it's an important thing to remember. But you can still expect pretty good things from a guy that has dominated the recruiting circuit and looks like the guy at that position. So that's a really interesting thing to monitor going forward. To once again put a little fly in the ointment of the analysis of Dennis Sutton. But we do have games. Go ahead.
I was going to say, so September 25th against LaSalle, man. I'm absolutely heading down there. That's the same day, I believe, as Penn State Villanova. I'm gonna skip that one and make sure that I'm down there to watch him play Abdul Carter. So I hope to bring back a lot of film for everybody, like some good stuff for you to dissect. But that's the date everybody should have circled as far as really getting a good feel for Dennis Sutton off his injury as defensive end and just his overall potential.
Looking forward to it. You know I love it when you bring me film. It's the only thing I care about, because we'll get to that in just a second. But a couple of games that you're looking forward to this weekend. Give me 2 games that you're looking forward to.
It's so this week isn't quite as stacked as last week. Although last week, we had some rainouts and Westerville South, Caden Saunders School, they got postponed due to COVID. So there's let me run through 4 real quick, and I promise I will make it quick because I feel like all 4 need to be mentioned. The main one this week is absolutely Ematep Charter DeMatha Catholic. That's where I'm headed tonight. KJ Winston versus Keon Wiley. Whenever you get the opportunity to see 2 Penn State prospects play each other, you have to take it. So Winston had 9 tackles and interception last week. They beat Holy Spirit. And Keon Wiley had 7.5 tackles, 4.5 for loss, I want to say, in a win over Pittsburgh Central Catholic. So both players got off to a good start, and both play on really good teams that are ranked nationally. Ematep Charter has a ton of players. Ramir Stewart, 2023 safety, 2024 defensive back Kenneth Woosley, I want to say. I still haven't figured out 100% how to pronounce his name. I think I said that last week too. One of these days I'll I'll ask him about it. Hopefully I'll get to ask him tonight and make sure I clarified it. I believe it's Kenneth Woosley though. And then 2025 defensive end Zahir Mathis. He already has I believe approaching 10 offers, and he's just entering his freshman year. So that should tell you all you need to know. And then DeMatha has an absolute stud of a player, a top 50 defensive tackle, in Jason Moore, and he's somebody I'm looking forward to catching up to tonight. So that's a really big game. If there's one game that I got to check to see if it's on YouTube or if it's on NFH Network, whatever it is, if you're hanging out tonight and you want to watch some high school football, make sure that's the one. Just real quick, 3 games to mention. Westerville South, Caden Saunders. Their game was canceled last week as COVID, as I mentioned. They're playing a solid Darby squad in Ohio, but both are top 50 programs. And Darby's produced a couple of Division I players over the year, usually the kind of MAC level schools. Don't know any true Division I prospects in that game, but again, it's just a good opponent. And in Caden Saunders' first game, his team rushed for 300 yards. We barely got any highlights from that. So really looking forward to see. Hopefully, Caden makes some big plays tonight. Cumberland Valley, Central York. Bo Perbula is facing his old head coach. That's going to be fun. Josh Oswalt was the head coach for Central York during Bo's sophomore year. He went to Cumberland Valley then, and now 2 years later, he's going to get to face him. So that'll be a fun one if you're in Central Pennsylvania. And then Wilson, Governor Mifflin. This will probably be Nick's best season. Last year they crushed Wilson, 48-7, and I expect Governor Mifflin to probably get a good win again. But Wilson's a pretty solid squad. They had a good win last week over Central Dauphin, and they're always in the mix for that District 3 championship. So just seeing what Nick Singleton does in week 2 will be fun to see. I expect Governor Mifflin to go deep into the playoffs this year. So 4 good games to keep an eye on. But if you have to pick one, it's easily Ematep and DeMatha.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned Bo Perbula, because the one thing I've taken away from watching so far this season is that there has been a considerable step forward for Bo Perbula as a quarterback. I was really impressed in his last game with his mechanics, with his anticipation. So we've talked a lot about guys where we want to see more film, and I always want more when it comes to these guys. But I feel now like I have a pretty good handle on what Bo Perbula is as a passer, and I'm really impressed. Now, I understand the arm strength, and people have questions about that. There are a couple 50-50 balls. There are a couple balls that I don't know that were great plays that his receiver made a good play on. But for the most part, he made great decisions with the football. He's quick with his mind, with his feet. So I feel like I know what Bo Perbula is going to be going forward, and I just want to see more of that, more good decisions, more accurate balls underneath and in the intermediate part of the field. So I am now checking him off my list of guys where I feel confident I know what they're going to be translating to the next level. Some quick hitters here before we get into our newest segment here on the show. September 1st, for people that are not avid followers of recruiting, tell us why September 1st was an important date and some of the things that came out of that.
Yeah. Well, look, we've been talking 2023 recruiting all summer and really in the last spring, but a lot this summer because of how many guys came and visited. But believe it or not, Penn State wasn't allowed to contact one of those guys on their own whenever they want throughout the entire summer. And basically the way schools go about that is they contact high school coaches, let the player know that they want to talk. The player has to then reach out to the coaches. And, once they get those first couple conversations, they kind of get into a rhythm. And as long as the player always initiates the conversation, that's how schools get around that and recruit guys so young. Well, now September 1, Penn State's allowed to contact these guys basically whenever they want. And they're not allowed to call on the phone, which is kind of silly because they are allowed to FaceTime and Zoom. And I think that's a rule that we will probably see change. Yeah, I know, right? That's a rule we'll probably see change. FaceTime and Zoom have really blown up over the last 2 years, especially with COVID and all that. So that's a rule I think we'll see change at some point. But they're allowed to text basically whenever they want. They're allowed to shoot kids messages on social media. And as I said, they can set up FaceTimes and Zoom. So just being able to initiate conversations. So we've talked about so many 2023 guys who already have a lot of interest in Penn State, all right? And these are guys who are obviously reaching out to the staff and they want to build a relationship. But there's also a lot of guys nationally who just don't really understand Penn State's interest yet. And now Penn State's allowed to really express that interest. So just going through, Twitter feeds and whatnot, there's a lot of top national guys. Santana Fleming was a top player from American Heritage. I know he was posting out there that he talked to Penn State. And there's a ton of others. We could roll through names. But the main thing I want to stress now is that Penn State can start initiating conversations with these players. And with that, I think you may see a few more national guys that we weren't talking about over the past couple months, maybe come up for an Auburn game, maybe come up for a Michigan game or attend a junior day once we get to January and February. So Penn State can just now contact these guys, pretty much whenever they want. And that's when we'll get these relationships really rolling.
Keeping you as busy as possible during the busiest possible part of the year.
I had a really good
month, Ryan.
August was great. I got to go away with my family for 9 or so days, and I needed that. It was a good recharge. So I'm ready. Like I like taking that late August vacation, a week or two before the season because it's easy this week with an away game and even Ball State. There probably won't be a big visitor list for that. Penn State usually keeps that first week down a bit. Although, after a year of COVID and no visits, now I say that it'll probably be like 60, 70 kids, of course. But of course, once we get to Auburn week, that's when you're going to see the 120 some kids on the sideline all wearing white and excited to see the white out. But yeah, we're ready to roll, man. This is good. This is when it gets fun.
One last thing, and because you can't not talk about something like this, but Quinn Ewers signs a $1.4 million name, image, and likeness. I think it was an autograph deal at Ohio State. So what do you think? What's your initial thought?
Money. Yeah. My initial thought right now is that this is part of the 1%. There's a handful of guys getting these crazy deals right now, and you're not going to see this, at like I said, probably 99% of the rest of the, FBS college football players. I think the market will correct itself at some point. This seems outrageously high to me, but I assume that these guys are smarter than I am when it comes to analytically what to pay these guys. So they clearly see something, and of course, Quinn Ewers is a monster name out there. But just that kind of money seems just ridiculously high to me. But good for him, man. Yeah, of course, he has that. The other contract with is it a kombucha company, something like that?
I think it's kombucha.
Yeah, I don't drink it. I don't know, but he has at least 2 awesome endorsements now, which I think are paying him like $2 million, which is absolutely absurd. I assume that's
absurd.
Probably not all lump sum. I would assume that's going to be spread out over the next handful of years. But what I'm really just curious to see though is Penn State wise, because it does kind of feel as if Penn State isn't on that level yet. And of course, I don't think that, they don't have the Saquon Barkley. I think if there was a Barkley here, you'd see maybe something different. But, I'm just waiting to kind of see some of those bigger deals drop for Penn State guys. And maybe, maybe it'll come with time. Of course, winning is a big part of it. And, I know you and I were kind of discussing that earlier. You think if they can take that next step, it'll help a lot.
Yeah. First off, fun fact: I used to brew my own kombucha. So I'm not sending Quinn Ewers, but I used to brew my own kombucha.
Is it like healthy for you? Like, is it like what is it?
Yeah. So it's a probiotic, and it's made with a giant piece of fungus, essentially. Okay. So it's this living organic thing that then creates this byproduct from tea, and it's delicious. Like it's the closest thing you can get to pop with no sugar. Like so, it eats the sugar. Pop. And
You just called soda pop.
I do. That you know what? In my head, it's 50-50 because I've lived in state college for long enough, and everyone's like, it's soda. I grew up saying pop. So the carbonation makes a pop when you open it. That is what I'm looking for. That's what I want. So I was making my own kombucha for a while. Not worth it. Took up my whole Sunday. But yeah, when it comes... When it comes, yeah, I've got way too much to do on Sunday. It's great in like March. It's great in April, but as soon as there's anything to do on a Sunday, that's just not worth it. But yeah, when it comes to winning and losing of games, when they win, when Penn State wins and they get on a big stage and they do those things, this is the baked-in element of being in the college football playoff and having a head start on every new thing that happens. Clemson, Ohio State, Alabama, the list goes on. You know the names. They have this built-in advantage, and it's just going to continue until a Barkley hits, or there is an opening of the college football playoff, or you get in and you get a guy who performs on those big stages. That's how that changes, because I've heard people say time and time again that Penn State has a disadvantage when it comes to not being in a big city. And sure, you don't have those initial advantages, but Ryan, I was driving around yesterday and I saw a Bugatti and like a
nice cars
BMW X something or other. Like it was a street racing car. So money knows how to find State College is my point. It doesn't matter if it's one of the students coming from out of the country or if it's money for a football player. Money will find the places it needs to go. That's how that works. And speaking of money, our latest segment I think is going to be a hit here on the BWI Daily Edition. We are now bringing out Snyder's best bets. Each week we're going to break down some games from college football that Ryan has his eye on, and he's going to give me and you an education in where to place your money, where to give you the inside track so you can beat the market. We got a good list of games this week. We'll always have the Penn State game on here, but you can see North Carolina, Indiana at Iowa, West Virginia at Maryland, Miami, Alabama, LSU, UCLA, Clemson, Georgia, Notre Dame, Florida State. What is the one that stands out to you? I know that this whole list stands out to you, but what's the one that you're looking at right now?
Okay, so well, first off, let's save Penn State for last. And if out of these games that I like the most, I actually think the Terps, man. I like really? Maryland. Yeah. So I've been high on Maryland all off season. If you listen to the podcast that David and Greg and I a couple weeks ago, we tried to pick some season overs and whatnot. I think I don't think Maryland's going to win 8-9 games or anything, but I like their team total of over 5.5. I think they can get to 6 wins this year, and I think this is a game they got to have at home against West Virginia, getting 3 points. Yeah, I just think there's a lot to learn still about West Virginia, and I think the Terps, they played well in some season openers in recent years, and I think they have a good mix of talent coming back, and really, I thought they would have had a decent season last year if it didn't get cut off. So, out of all those games, if I had to pick one that I like the most, I think it would be Maryland getting 3. So, I'm going to look probably silly now with this, but. That's where I land right now. But we pick these games mainly because they're the big games of the weekend, and I know fans are interested. Gambling's legal in Pennsylvania and so many other places now. We have people talking about it all the time on our board. So for this week,
proper term by the way. What do you mean? I signed up yesterday so that I could gather the information. Signed up to my first ever sports betting site. So when I want to say, here's Ryan's best bets and where to. How do I properly phrase it? Because for a long time you weren't allowed to phrase it in a certain way. I can say whatever I want when I introduce a segment, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just call it sports betting. I don't know what else to call it than that, or wagering. Handicapping if you really want. To me,
you had to find creative ways to say it before, and when I can just say gambling, and then everyone go like in my head, it was like it's like when you bite a fork. It was like that. Ooh, I don't think that was good. So okay, sports betting. There we go. By the way, the over under. On the point total in that game is 57 for Maryland, West Virginia. Are you looking at that at all?
No, I just like getting the 3. And no, look, one thing I'll stress here now, and throughout the next couple weeks when we do this, or I guess the next couple months, if you're into this stuff. Always search around, always look around, because there are, especially now that it's legal in Pennsylvania, you can get a lot of different numbers. I mean, there's +3s, there's +2.5s. In another game we'll discuss a little bit, there's a difference of 1.5 points. So I'll always just kind of point to the direction that's best bet for wherever I'm leaning. And right now, getting +3 for Maryland at DraftKings, Bet365, BetMGM. We can go into a bunch of them, but if you're going to bet the Terps here, just make sure you find a +3 because they're out there instead of a +2.5.
Yeah, and if there's ever a sponsor that's interested, we can make it exclusive. You just have to let us know.
That's true.
Let's roll through some of these games. North Carolina, Virginia Tech, that one is coming up tonight, so let's start there. You got North Carolina, they got 5.5 on the. I'm sorry, Virginia Tech is 5.5 on this. What are you looking at in this game? What stood out to you about this one?
So this is kind of hits on the point I was just bringing up is, we bring up 5.5, but you can get all the way up to 6.5 depending on where you look. And that's what's fun, I guess, about, having betting legal now is there's so many options to look around. So, for example, for me, this is definitely not a game I would play just because there's a lot of variables. North Carolina lost a lot last year. For this segment, I like kind of Virginia Tech getting the points. And right now, you can find a couple places at +6.5. And long story short, if it actually does get to 7, which I'd be surprised if it does, I think it's a better chance it drops back down to 6 or, there's a lot of 5.5s too. So that's why I'd be surprised if it gets to 7. But if it did get to 7, I think Virginia Tech's a decent play here. They've pulled quite a few upsets at home in recent years as being a home underdog. I believe, what was I reading? I think ESPN had it right up the other day where it was, I think they've pulled, I forget the number was. I apologize. It's basically everybody they play at home that's an underdog, not named Clemson. They actually can. Yeah. They actually can have. So Sam Howell's a great quarterback, man. He was actually somebody I mentioned previously as a Heisman candidate, as somebody if you're going to wager on Heisman to play, and I think he will be great. But they lost a lot of talent at running back, a lot of talent at wide receiver. Going to Blacksburg Friday night, no fans in the last year, getting almost a touchdown. I will kind of lean that way. So, but maybe in weeks to come, we'll try and find games that I absolutely love, even if it's Tulane or UConn or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And this wouldn't be one that I absolutely would play. But if I was leaning one way or the other, I think I would take the points.
Yeah, and Virginia Tech always has a good defense. That's the thing playing at home. Even I know you're really getting down into a narrow sample, but early in the game versus Clemson last year, they hung tough with Clemson for a while. They frustrated Trevor Lawrence. They've got a really good defense year in and year out. That's why when I'm looking at the over-under 63 in this one, I would go under. What you just said, losing Diami Brown, Javonte Williams, Michael Carter, Daz Newsome. I loved his tape coming out of the draft. He was just a nasty physical slot receiver, and all that's gone. So it's really all on Sam Howell. And if you think that a quarterback can just throw to anybody, look at what happened to Sean Clifford last year when he lost his top running back and when he lost his top tight end. So don't bet on that every single year. Not saying that North Carolina isn't a good team, but just that production, those points that they got last year, I don't know that you can bank on that. Moving on, Indiana, Iowa. This one coming in pretty dang close here. Indiana +3.5.
Yeah. Love the Hawkeyes here. This is actually, when you asked me earlier, my best bets, that this would be a close second to Maryland. It may actually even be a slight edge over Maryland. I think everything fell right for Indiana last year. Just everything. Even those 2-point diving conversions that wasn't a 2-point conversion. Sorry, Indiana fans. But I like the Hawkeyes at home. I believe they're given 3. So getting 3 or given 3? I believe I forget what it is off the top of my head. But either way, I think they're given 3. I like the Hawkeyes here. Yeah, just I believe I was a dark horse to kind of win the Big Ten West this year. If I was actually playing who will probably end up playing Ohio State in the Big Ten championship, and look at odds wise, instead of playing Wisconsin, I'd take the juicier odds with Iowa. So don't really have much else to say than that. I'm not as high on Indiana. I think they take a step back this year, and Iowa's always a very solid squad. Season opener. I'll take the Hawkeyes.
What is Michael Penix Jr.'s injury status this year? Because I know that there's always one every year. What did he end up going out with last year? I forget. Because that's a big thing to me.
My mind has been so frazzled since the summer, dude. Like, I can rattle off 1,000. Yeah, I can rattle off 1,000 2023 kids' names, but injuries right now are the last thing on my mind from last season.
But I guess that's my point is he's a good quarterback, but I don't know that he's super reliable to be in the game at all times. When he is, they're a good team, and that defense in Indiana now is going to be consistently good. Micah McFadden, I think is his name, the linebacker, fantastic. He is a battering ram, and I love Trayvon Mullen, the corner, but you're right. When it comes to team, the depth at Indiana, the ability to play a full schedule and play up to that level, that's going to be the biggest question and a big test right out of the gate. I don't blame you. I also look at that over-under 46. That's about right. This is not going to be the Indiana team that's putting up 47 points in a game this year. I just don't see that part happening.
I see Indiana having. Let me cut you off real quick. I see Indiana having 2 losses by the time they get to Penn State. I think they lose to Iowa, and I think they lose to Cincinnati.
That's a big one then, because Cincinnati, that's another team to watch out for this year with Desmond Ridder at quarterback. Obviously, a team every year that you've got to watch out for. Alabama, Miami here. I don't know that I've ever seen this before. Miami getting 19.5 points in this game. Wow.
Yeah. And I won't take those points. I will take Alabama, lay them. I mean, look, dude, they're in this. They do this every year. They have a neutral site game against a decent opponent, not a world beater, but a good name, and they romp them. They're 11-2 against the spread in these season opener neutral site kind of games. And when you look, this is what I'm talking about with buying or looking for different spreads at different books. We can find 18.5 and all the way up to -20 here. So take the 18.5. I believe it's with DraftKings. And I would bet it sooner than later because I expect people to bet Alabama pretty big here. De'Aaron King's a good player. They have a few other pieces, man. And look, Alabama lost a lot. I'm actually really high on Georgia, who we talked about in the most recent a couple weeks ago in our season preview and all those gambling picks. And I have Georgia to bet a couple different ways. We'll talk about them in a second. And I think Alabama loses a lot, and that's why I took Georgia. But Miami's, I don't know, man. Miami's not on that kind of level. This is Nick Saban. They reload more than not. I expect them to win by 24. That's
also. I think people are overlooking too much the fact that De'Aaron King had a gruesome knee injury during the bowl game last year, and there's just not enough time to come back from. I don't know if his knee was dislocated, but it was an ACL and an MCL and some meniscus damage all at the same time, and you just can't be the same person in less than 12 months. You can play, and he can play, but part of what made De'Aaron King and Miami dangerous is his ability to extend plays, his ability to those vertical balls, and if you play man coverage, he can run underneath and he can eat up gobs of yards, and he's a good decision maker. The problem is that part I don't think you can expect to be there. Plus, he's a good athlete, but Alabama's fielding, an all-rookie squad every single year on their team going into the NFL. So, is he better than all of those athletes? Certainly not at this point. So I don't think you can even say the dark horse here, Miami, with a puncher's chance, because they're coming in with their lead thing that they want to do on offense is not effective. So I agree with you. I think the points here are fair.
Even if he's 100%, man, he's not doing that against Alabama. It's
maybe
a different
they could
thing.
Cover. I would say the difference is maybe they could cover, but I don't know that they're going to do any more than that in this game. That's all.
Just every year we see this, and people are like, "Oh, is this going to be the year that one of these teams sticks with Alabama, and then they lose by 24, 31?" I think the average. I think the average over the year, I saw a stat. It was they normally win by 24. So I just see this being another one. Win by 21, win by 24, and on to the next one.
Here's a line that I think has gotten a little bit closer over time. LSU, UCLA, just in the last week or so. UCLA looks good in the first week. It was Hawaii, but they look good. UCLA plus 2.5. They're hosting LSU. What do you think?
Another example of shop around, man. You can get +3 at a lot of places too, and that's what I would take. I'll take UCLA because I'm really high on UCLA this year. This is another team that we talked about in our previous pod. I actually like them at +1,000 to win the Pac-12. Now, obviously, Oregon's a pretty good favorite there, but if you're searching for value at a +1,000, I like UCLA. And this is another team that I expect to go over their total. Man, they lost a handful of games last year by just a couple points. They're a really solid squad, and Chip Kelly hasn't. I don't. It hasn't been as quick as I think a lot of people were hoping. He would turn around UCLA, and LSU still has a lot to prove after last year. They had a ton of injuries last year. LSU will be a better team, and I actually wouldn't be shocked if LSU has like a home field advantage here. Did you watch that UCLA game last week, man? There was nobody there.
I thought they were still in COVID restrictions. I honestly thought they couldn't have people there, but I don't know. I don't know.
I think they can. Actually,
I think they can. It was just that nobody went. That's what I mean.
I don't think anyone goes to UCLA games. Like that's kind of what I've seen in recent years. So I wouldn't be shocked if there's actually more LSU fans in it than UCLA. But hey, I'll take the points here, man. I like UCLA getting a couple points. They've shown me a decent amount over the years. I like their quarterback. I like Chip Kelly, and LSU has a lot of questions here. So I'll roll the dice with the Bruins.
Yeah, I'm staying away from this game because I don't trust Chip Kelly, maybe more so on the college level. I've thought he's perennially overrated, a guy that, we see these guys that innovate, they come in, they change either college football or the NFL, and then that's their trick, right? So they do that one thing, and then they don't really evolve. And truthfully, I probably have not been paying enough attention to UCLA, but when I have watched their games, and I've done a couple of their games, it's just another college offense. But the only thing I like less than that is Ed Orgeron without Joe Brady. So, I lean LSU, but I don't like anything here. I really don't like anything in this game.
I like Dorian Thompson. I forget his last name. Dorian Thompson
Robinson.
I think
that sounds
I'm
right.
screwing up on our podcast right now. I know it's 2 decibels there, but just long story short, I'll just take the points, man. I've been high on UCLA for a while. I've been talking about this for 3 weeks now. This one could go either way, but I think UCLA is going to be a team that impresses this year. I think they can get to 7, maybe even 8 wins, and if they want to get to there, they got to get this win.
We've got 2 more games we're going to look at and a couple of really big ones. Probably we're going to end with the second biggest game of the weekend if you consider that Alabama, when they show up, it's the biggest game. But Clemson, Georgia. That, by the way, before we get to Penn State and Wisconsin, Clemson, Georgia. Clemson -3 in this game. What do you think? I know you've got a lot of opinions about the Bulldogs.
It is Dorian Thompson Robinson, by the way. I looked it up. We had it right. So I've been high on Georgia for a long time, and then of course, after I go on YouTube and run my mouth about Georgia, a bunch of guys are out. Of course, it mainly Tyke Smith and the safety, because their defensive backfield was maybe their biggest issue last year. So I'm going to leave over 50 here. I think both teams can definitely get 4 touchdowns each in this one. I just expect a really fun game, man. I truly believe either team can win this. And that's kind of why I'm so high. I'm really high on Georgia, mainly because I feel like Alabama will take a bit of a step back. And when you look at trying to place value when it comes to future bets and whatnot, I just thought that was a good value on Georgia. I think we got them at plus 250 to win the SEC, and then plus 800 or so to win the national championship. I just, show me a team as talented as Georgia at those odds. That's just kind of was my mindset behind that. So, plus 50 here. I was normally leaving Georgia over the last couple of weeks, but a couple of those injuries, they scare me a little bit. But I expect to see something pretty fun here, maybe a 31-28 kind of game, something like that. It should be a really fun one Saturday night. I know we all want to get our work done after the Penn State-Wisconsin game so we can sit down and watch this one. What are you thinking?
Well, my biggest question, and I hate to be simplistic, but people always give credit to the returning quarterback. Mm-hmm. But when your returning quarterback is JT Daniels, I don't really know what to do with that. I've never really been impressed with JT Daniels. I'll have to look at him a little more in depth, but he's never really stood out to me as a guy that is a clear difference maker at that position. But as far as you're right, when it comes to the recruiting, when it comes to the talent level, Georgia is right up there with everybody else. And I this game to me, in these close games, I'm very conservative. Very conservative with these things. So I think more than anything, I'm looking at that over-under, and I'd put it over 50. But I don't know that I'm putting either way on this one, because it's really just it's too close to call. There's too many things. Both teams are really good, and then you have to get into the individual matchups, which I haven't really gotten into those. So I'm staying away from this one because of the talent on the field. I think a lot of things can go pretty quickly in a different way. Notre Dame, Florida State. Here's one that I have no problem with. Give me the points here with Notre Dame. They're -7.5 in this game because Florida State, until proven otherwise, is dead. Time of death was like 6 years ago.
I mean, they're recruiting well now, but those guys aren't going to be on the field this week.
Right.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. I'll give 7 points, and this is another one example. You can find 7.5, and you can find 7. Pretty simple. You like Florida State, make sure you get that hook. If you like the Irish, make sure you find it at -7. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, look, I've tried to buy into Florida State in recent years, but I'm right there with you. Until they show me they can bounce back, I can't buy into them. To me, they're a good season for them is 7-5, 6-6. That just kind of feels like their ceiling this year. And Notre Dame's going to take a step back, but they can still win 9-10 games this year, and this should be one of them. So this will be, I believe it's a Sunday night, right? I think this is the Sunday night game on ABC. It'll be fun to watch. So, but I'll roll with the Irish here.
Something we talked about last week quickly, then we'll get on to our main event, is my biggest problem with Notre Dame is that they cannot develop a quarterback. From Brandon Wimbush all the way on, Brian Kelly's had a lot of high-quality talent come through there, at least as far as recruiting is concerned. And I know that they've been going after a lot of dual-threat guys. They want guys that are mobile, but I just don't feel like they do anything with it. And that, to me, with Ian Book now moved on to the NFL, there is I would normally say I knew what his ceiling was, and I'm not ever concerned about Notre Dame from that perspective with Ian Book there. There's the open opportunity to improve there, but then the question is, can Brian Kelly do that? I don't think that's the case. But I just really don't like Florida State. I just think they're that bad that I can have that opinion about Notre Dame and still think Florida State has absolutely no chance because, the domination and everywhere else, Notre Dame is really good. They develop guys really well on the defensive side of the football. From the D-line backward, they're really good at making good football players better, and that's what I'm banking on that one. Speaking of making good football players better, but can they get those great football players? We're moving on to our main event. Wisconsin, who I'm speaking of there, and Penn State. This one coming in, Penn State getting 5.5 points in this game. Where do we start with this one, Ryan?
Hard. This one, I've been so torn on, man. So, again, if we go back to the previous podcast, I said I would take Wisconsin given 4.5. And now it's up to 5.5. I don't feel good about it at all. If it got to 6, I think you got to play Penn State. I really do. Look, these teams are pretty even, man. There's a lot to learn on both. This is one to stay away from. I know Penn State fans aren't going to want to do that. There's part of me that thinks the over here. There's just so much to learn on both sides. I mean, I want to believe that Penn State's linebacker core and some of the guys that they're bringing in on the defensive line, we know their secondary will be solid. I want to believe that they're going to take that next step, which is, why you would probably take under 50. But there's part of me that thinks that there's just they have a lot to climb to, a lot to improve on still in those two units, and that's probably why I would maybe lean over 50. I think Penn State can score 24. I think Wisconsin can, get around 30 or so. There's part of me that thinks Wisconsin's going to squeak this one out, but man, I wouldn't be shocked if Penn State wins either. I'm so torn. I know this is not what you guys want. I would say this: if you're going to play Penn State, I would just play the money line at plus 180. I think it's just a better value than the points there. To me, this is a Wisconsin win by 7. I don't really see Wisconsin winning by 3. I mean, it'll be a good game, but if you want to play Penn State, man, just take the 180. That's I think the best bet.
Can I completely go out of character on this one?
Go.
So here's the deal. I'm always about show me. Where are the facts? Give me the proof. Don't just give me your opinion about something. I mean, hell, that that's how I ended up working at PFF. Is like I wanted to find the answer, so I went to the people that watched all the film and collected all the information. But earlier this week, we spoke to Sean Clifford post-practice, and I'm going to get all wooey mysticism here. Sean Clifford is one of those guys that he's very smart, and his own thoughts interrupt his own thoughts. So he's a very tangential speaker. He'll start answering your question, and then he'll go over here, and he'll talk to you about something here. So like usually that means somebody's really intelligent, and they have a hard time just putting all their thoughts in a line. He was the most lucid, I've ever heard him when we talked on Wednesday. He was calm. He answered the questions in beautiful fashion. I know, like, he's like 25 now. Like, he's a man now. So part of that is probably growing up and all those things. And my point is, he has never looked more confident when I've talked to him than he did on Wednesday. He's never been more self-assured and in the moment than when I saw him Wednesday. That plus some of the things, just looking at the Wisconsin secondary and their aggressiveness in man coverage, I have no problem with taking the 5.5 here. I think that's a solid bet at the very least. Early, I was giving Wisconsin this by a field goal and a prediction. I don't know. Maybe by Saturday, maybe by tomorrow, I'm thinking Penn State could pull the upset here just because of literally one 10-minute interaction throughout all the logic, everything I've learned, whatever. Sean Clifford looks good. That's my analysis.
Let's go. Hey, Penn State won 6 of the last 7 against Wisconsin, which was something I actually didn't quite realize until I was going through it the other day. But, my honest opinion, just from being around the team, going to practices, watch it, and I know Penn State fans want to bet their team, you'll learn so much from your team from watching this game. You have ample opportunities to bet Penn State all year. Or at least watch the first quarter even. I think we'll learn so much in just the first quarter here about everything from Yurchich's offense to some of the holes they have to fill on defense. To me, watch those first couple drives, and I think it'll tell you so much. So just that would be my best bet. But, if you have to play this game, the value to me, these are two pretty even teams. Take the plus 180. You don't have to lay a ton to almost double your money. That, to me, that just makes the most sense. These are definitely more even teams. And like I said, if it got to 6, I think you absolutely have to play Penn State. To me, this is a hard one, man. I've struggled on this one for 2.5 weeks now.
Well, I think you've given solid advice here. You've given solid insight. Just like I always say, we want to end the week right, so we go to our heavy hitter, Ryan Snyder, our recruiting and sports betting insider, adding titles and all.
I'm going to miss out on all these. I'm sorry I cut you off. We're going to go like 1-7. But, hey, can I just give me 1 second here? So, sure. There are actually games we were playing. Like, again, I was trying to pick the big games that people like. But there are a couple that I actually, truly like. I like Northwestern over Michigan State. I like Stanford. Who's Stanford playing again? I'm drawing a blank. Kansas State. I like. I don't know why. I just from reading around some people this week, I like to follow what we call sharp money. And just from reading a few friends of mine that I follow, whether it's on Twitter or even I do actually have a friend or two in Vegas. The Stanford and Northwestern are two teams getting some decent money. Georgia, Clemson over. That was another one I mentioned earlier. That's another one getting some decent money. I mentioned UCLA already. And there's actually some money coming in on Temple over getting a bunch of points against Rutgers. I'm not touching that one, but
especially it was moved now, so it's been moved. Yeah, I don't like that.
Oh, yeah, true. I think plus 15.5, 2 touchdowns. I don't know. I'm interested because people seem extremely down on Temple. I don't know enough about Temple right now, but there does seem to be some good money coming in on Temple, Stanford, and Northwestern. We'll see what happens.
All right, there you have it. That is the BWI Daily Edition for the week. Don't forget, coming up tomorrow, it's Penn State versus Wisconsin at noon. That you already knew. But in case you haven't heard, BWI Live. Follow along. We're going to have a live postgame here. I'm Thomas Frank Carr, your host of the BWI Daily Edition. I will be your host for a live postgame show on YouTube. So set your alarm for after the game. We're going to be doing a live reaction show, give you the stats, the plays that mattered, and I'll be giving you the insight about what happened Penn State versus Wisconsin. However it breaks, we'll have it for you here on YouTube. That's the BWI Daily Edition. We'll be back here on this show on Monday.